Alright guys, today let's talk about Pokemon Market, right? We all like talking about Pokemon Market and doing some really cool things in it. So today we're going to be talking about Pokemon International and how they don't seem to have the ability to be able to gauge the market correctly to get the correct amount of product out for you guys when it comes down to the Pokemon TCG and product. So with all that being said, I'm going to pull up my lovely artwork here. Of course, I'm going to show off my artistic ability. Yes, I know I should be a Pokemon artist, right? I'd fit right in with some of those. But here we start out with. We have the Pokemon International building. Now, what's the significance of the Pokemon International building? Well, this is the building where they start to create the Pokemon products, the Pokemon TCG, the meta. They start really producing what really is driving what they're looking for, right? They start to create the art sets or send the art sets out to the artists. They give them the plan, the idea of what the set's about. The artist sends in the artwork based on that character, and that's how it continues to move forward. They create the gameplay dynamics, such as abilities, such as the moves and the hit points, how many hit points and evolutions we're going to get. They create all this stuff inside of that building. That's the main focus, the heart of the Pokemon TCG. That's what gets everything moving and started and going forward. Now, what does Pokemon International do? How do they make a decision on where the set's going to be done? Well, if you follow Poke Beach or you follow Poke Guardian, usually 8 to 12 months prior to a set even being released in Japan, we see applications for trademarks going through or approvals for those trademarks. And when those approvals come through, they usually have a name, and that's how we usually start to get the name of the Japanese sets well in advance of a release in Japan, right? We start to see like Time Gazer and all these sets coming through way ahead of time. They were almost 8 months prior to the release. I think we were doing videos last July about these 3 sets coming up here in the Pokemon TCG. We also know about VMAX Climax well ahead of time, almost 9 months prior to that. It was released that VMAX Climax was coming. So all of these sets have a long time beforehand, and there's good reasoning. You got to get the trademark. You got to get all that stuff in order. You got to build the logos, and you got to build the set identity, especially in Japan, in order to send to the artists to create these things. So this is a long process, guys. It's not like these processes are done in like 2 months in between sets. You think that something is happening in that little window between those 2 sets. No, this is years of advance. And this is why it affects the Pokemon market so much and why it's really difficult to gauge how this is going to go. So the one thing that they do is that we got to remember, there's one thing you got to always remember. Japan, right here, Japan will always be the #1 target of the Pokemon TCG. They will get the product first. They will have the best set identities, and they will get all the promos that they want or they put out will go to Japan. That's the main market for the Pokemon TCG. It always has been. It will always continue to do that as far as we can see. Next one is #2 is going to be your US or your English market. So that includes Canada, of course, United States, all the way down to Australia, and of course the UK. These are your next big targets that they're shooting for, followed by all the other languages after that. So, Pokemon International will sit there and get all this stuff back. They'll start 8 months to a year prior. They will get all this artwork back. They will get everything compiled in their testing. They'll make sure that the testing all follows through to stay in line with the meta, and that the cards that are necessary for the meta are in there so that they can continue gameplay, which is, of course, their tournament is their bread and butter. Their game players or their card players are definitely the #1 source that they're looking at. And that is nothing against investors. That's nothing against the people that are collecting. It's just that they try and keep their base happy, and they always will try and do that first. There are collector sets, but a majority of sets are designed for that meta gameplay. So what does Pokemon do? Prior, about 5 months, 4 months prior, they start getting contracts ready. They write contracts with the printer companies, right? They write contracts with the distributors. They work with these 3 in order to get these products done. 4 or 5 months prior to the Japan release, they will send their product or their information over to the printer. Printer kicks in. The printer starts creating all this product, and they start backing it up inside of their warehouses. What happens? Month prior to the release of the set, this product will now go to the distributor, right? The distributor gets this, and this is for the Japanese product. So this is all for that market. It's all for Japan right now. So going into about a month prior to release, the distributor is now getting products. That's when we start seeing all these oopsie releases. This card came in my Brilliant Stars pack and stuff happening from that point. It can happen because it is happening earlier. Distributors and printers are printing it well in advance. So it comes from the distributor and it goes to your stores, usually about 2 weeks prior to release. All the Japanese stores start to get their products, and of course you get released, which then go on your web and sold in your stores back and forth, usually consistently, on depending on the platform they're on. That is typically your rotation for Japan, right? Now, the same thing is happening for English. They go ahead and they start converting everything over to English. All the Pokemon International, of course, the heart of the business is converting everything over and creating these lovely little English versions, putting the yellow borders around them, making the updates with the language, making sure that they put all of the logos and everything changes over for the English version. Instead of saying SB something, it'll now say a symbol or just a regular or a logo on the bottom. And that's what they do for English. Now, 4 months prior, sending that information over to the printers again, right? They're getting the English version now coming into the printers. What do the English printers, or what do the printers do? They run the product. They start building it in their warehouse. Same thing, same process. 2 months beforehand, the distributors usually get it. 1 to 2 months prior to a release, distributors get it. Distributors send it to United States is number 2, Canada, Australia, and UK. Once again, same process, goes to the stores, goes through, we continue, so on and so forth, going through. Now, why do I bring this up? Why is this important when it comes down to trying to understand what's happening in Pokemon TCG, right? Why is it important to understand this time frame? Number one thing you got to realize in this time frame, it is 8 months to 6 months prior that you actually send this product to the printers. They're writing contracts for the number of cards that they are going to produce for each English, Japanese, all of these 4, 5 months, 6 months prior to them actually even setting up. They want to get it all up and set. They want to get their scheduling in. They want to get all this stuff ready to go so they can print. They're printing boxes. They're printing logos. They're printing the wraps. They're printing all of the boxes, the specialty boxes, the sleeves, all of this stuff, right? There's a ton of stuff that they're printing way ahead of time that they have to get done and get out there so that they can be produced, packaged, and ready to go. So, why is this important? Once again, Pokemon market does not change in 6 months. Does the Pokemon market stay the same for years in a row? Does the amount of demand for a set remain constant throughout time? No. That's the issue that they have. They are always trying to hit a target this big and trying to hit somewhere in it. Sometimes they hit way too far out and they get a ton of product. Sometimes they hit way on the small numbers and they're actually getting too little product. Pokemon International is always trying to print over what they need. And I think Pokemon is seeing some of these little cracks in the economy, and they are concerned that they are going to print way too much. They don't want to print something like Battle Styles where they still have Battle Style stock from last year at the distributor. Distributor starts holding a ton of product. They're not happy. That's a lot of money sitting in their warehouse that nobody wants. Same thing with other product. They want to have product because when LGS orders and they don't have it, they're losing money also. So there's kind of that little balancing act that Pokemon International has to try and maintain. That's why we see some sets hit target. Sometimes there's a perfect amount. People aren't fighting. There's plenty to go around. Everything happens. It happens very slim times. Very slim. Tiny little shavings that it hits perfect. Most of the time, they hit over, or they used to. They used to hit over up until 2020. Even in the past, you go to Sun and Moon, there's always plenty of product. There wasn't a single product that I can take off the top of my head at the time, back in 2019, that I couldn't go to my LGS and Sun and Moon era and just find. It was all over the place. As long as it was in tournament play, it was live, actually being used. The store shelves usually had tons of it available, and it was no problem. 2020 shifted that market, and Pokemon, I think, did really well reacting to that, and they actually didn't overproduce, even though they printed 9 billion cards. I know people look at 9 billion cards and think, wow, they overproduced crap out of everything. They didn't. We were still short product, and we're still short product. So obviously they didn't overproduce. The only thing that's going to change on that end of it is how many graded cards are potentially out there, how many of these singles are sitting out there. That's really what it adjusted, but the amount of product that's available for people, it wasn't enough. There's still a shortage of product. And now we're seeing it where Pokemon International is starting to tweak down, in my opinion, because they're concerned about the economy and they don't want to bury their distributors and products and not have the LGSs take what's coming in. We saw it with Brilliant Stars. We saw that kind of dial back. We saw them dial back the printers on Brilliant Stars where they did not produce enough. A lot of LGSs were crying pretty quickly that they did not have product and could not get product from the distributors. Even that little reprint that they did 2-3 weeks later was not enough to really get the demand on that set actually up to date. Same thing with Astro Radiance. A lot of LGSs and distributors out of Astro Radiance. They cannot get it. It's very difficult to find. Once again, that's why we're seeing that market price go up. Now, a lot of people like myself thought that that wave system was going to be an advantage for Pokemon, right? I thought that they could use that wave system to try and balance that out. They could tweak it in. First wave sells out. Second wave, okay, we'll print a little bit more and make that wave a little bigger. Okay, now it didn't sell as good being 4 or 5 months down the road. Now we can tweak it down and really get that fine-tuned so that the distributors have product, the LGSs can get product, and we're not in the scenario where we cannot get product out during the hype and FOMO, during the original release of the set to get people to buy it. So far, that has not happened. I hope with Millennium Printing Group, we might see that happen when it comes down to reprints and waves. But I talked to a couple other people in the distributors and also some LGSs, and they made it kind of clear that it'd be very hard for Pokemon International because, once again, they're signing contracts for these products 5-6 months down the road before the release. So even a reprint, it's 5 months before that reprint that they are scheduling it. We saw that even coming up with Evolving Skies. It was almost 3 months from the time that they announced they would be doing a reprint to the release. These are all things to keep in mind, that there is that delay, so that reaction time is a little bit slower. It's hard to react unless you're real time. They're not real time. They are going on 6-month-old data and releasing it today, and thus, that's why that market is always fluctuating up and down with what they're going to guess. My prediction is, and might be completely false, it's just my kind of thought process on the history of Pokemon TCG and what they might do. We might see one of these last sets, whether it's Lost Origins. Haven't seen the production numbers on that. I could probably talk to a couple people and find out. Possibly the holiday set, or there's going to be one more set now in Sword and Shield era. One of these sets may have an incredibly high print volume on it. Reason being, Pokemon's gone, okay, Brilliant Stars, we didn't print enough. Astral Radiance, we didn't print enough. Pokemon Go, we didn't print enough. Let's crank it. Let's see what it does. All of a sudden, they'll send one out like Battle Styles. There'll be product everywhere. They'll blast it at everybody. Distributors will be buried in it. And if that's the case, people in the market will be mad because now they overshot. And that's exactly what's going to continue to happen. It's going to be nearly impossible to hit that bullseye, but Millennial Printing Group may give them the ability to take that bullseye from this big and tweak it down to this big. Still, hitting the center is going to be incredibly hard, but it narrows down the window of how much they underprint and overprint, which means the market could absorb overprinting fairly easy or not have a huge demand because it was underprinted by a ton like we've been seeing recently. So hopefully that clarifies things on how Pokemon International works. When it comes to the Pokemon market or product or your investments, why sometimes it really seems like Pokemon is missing the mark by a mile. It's all because of the delay. You're talking 5-6 months delay from the time they sign contracts to the time the set's released. It's very difficult to predict where this market's going to be in that amount of time, and that is where Pokemon is. So other than that, guys, if I did bring you some good information, be sure you hit that subscribe, hit that notify, and also hit that like button. We can get 60 or 85 likes on this video. Greatly appreciate it. Helps us out a ton. And last but not least, if you do like this kind of content, as always, check out these 2 videos over here. I will put them up for you afterwards. We will see you next time here on Northwoods TCG.